Hey everybody, welcome back. We got another great question, and this question right here is possibly the most important question of any question. The question is, what are the keys to injury reduction and management for a long-term bodybuilding career? What a great question. My short answer is first an understanding of what pain and injury are, because that will help manage it down the road, right? We have to know what pain and injury are and what they are not. That's very important, because if we're not dealing with the right map, doesn't matter how good of a driver we are, we're not going to get to where we have to go. One of the things that this reminds me of is oftentimes when people are in financial hardships, sometimes they will look to their daily Starbucks coffee run as a reason why they're in debt. And they'll say, okay, you know what, I'm spending $5.50 every morning on a Starbucks cup of coffee. That's X amount of dollars per month, X amount of dollars per year. If I just swap out this coffee and I make my own coffee at home, then I will be that much closer to not being in debt. So they use that. They get that hit of dopamine because, hey, we're doing something, right, to fix our debt. The problem is that there is no way that buying a Starbucks coffee every morning is the reason why that person is in debt, right? What it does, though, is it satisfies that need to do something to try to solve the problem. And that also distracts. That distracts from the actual things that will help get that person out of debt. So rather than focus on the Starbucks cup of coffee, maybe they should focus on the late night Amazon purchases that end up being, $600 a week unknowingly, because it's so easy to just charge in an app like the Amazon app, right? Perhaps it is the inability to save money. Maybe they bought a house that was just out of their means, and now they're in debt to their house, and they can't afford the payments of the house, right? They can't afford the bills. Those are the things that they should be focusing on, not the Starbucks, right? Similar when it comes to injury with athletes, we'll have someone who goes, embarks on a running endeavor, right? And they do a couch to 5K challenge. And they go from no running to running 5 days a week and trying to hit like 1 mile the first week, 2 miles the second week, 3 miles the third week, and then they develop some knee pain. At that time, now they have knee pain, so they're involved in the running world and follow social media accounts that have to do with running and have gotten running magazines, and they start reading about the nuances of running shoes and the different kinds of running shoes, and also the different kinds of ways to run. A heel striker, a forefoot striker, a midfoot striker. They dive into information about cadence of running, right? And they put their attention to things like that. Like, maybe I need to get better shoes. Maybe I need to retrain my running pattern to be more of a midfoot striker rather than a heel striker. Maybe I need to change my cadence up with my running, right? Maybe I need to set a metronome in my headphones so that I can strike at the right cadence. While those things may have their place, the real reason behind why this person has knee pain is the crux of this answer to the question, and it's the ability to manage workload. It's the ability to balance out load and capacity, right? So basically, what happened with our runner potentially and probably was they tried to do too much too soon after doing too little for too long, right? That's the basis of it. So when we talk about workload and capacity, load being on the one side includes things like the amount of weight lifted, the amount of miles that we run, yard work, daily step count, the intensity of our workouts, the duration of a sporting event, right, or an exercise bout. All of those things make up load on the one side of our balancing little seesaw. On the other side, we have capacity, and capacity is our body's ability to recover and adapt from the load that we throw at it. Things that impact capacity are sleep, hydration, nutrition, stress, anxiety, illness, comorbidities like diabetes, prior beliefs, expectations, past experiences, the amount of overall muscle strength that we've built up, the overall muscle endurance that we've built up, bone density, tendon resiliency. All of these things all impact capacity. And it's in a constant balancing act when we are, especially when we're some kind of athlete. It happens with general population as well, but it's much, much easier to kind of understand the concept when we're talking about an athlete, especially a bodybuilder. So an example of an injury, right? So we started this answer to this question, what is an injury, right? We have to know what an injury is and what it isn't. And it's hard to answer, right? Injuries, just like pain, are not well defined in the scientific literature. They're multifactorial. They can be many different things to many different people. Is an injury the sensation of pain? Probably not, because people feel pain all the time, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're injured. Is it taking time off from a sport? Well, I would argue that you can have an injury and still play or still participate in your sport. Is an injury only when someone goes to see a healthcare provider? I don't know, because I've had injuries, or I've had patients who've had injuries, or people I know who've had injuries who never went to see a healthcare provider. So what is an injury, right? We really can't define it. And I don't know that we have to have a definition of what an injury is. We have to just have an understanding of the concept of pain and injury management. So let's use an example of an injury using the load and capacity kind of workload management paradigm. So if I am at the bottom of a hill and my daughters are sleigh riding down the hill, I'm looking to the left and my daughters are coming down on the right side of me, and I notice that they're going out of control, and there's a street a couple feet behind me, and they're out of control and they can't stop their sled. I'm going to reach my arm out and grab that sled as fast as I can, and say, for example, that tears my bicep, right? That is an example of load spiking before capacity can adapt to it, right? That is load jumping up and capacity staying down here. So load exceeded my capacity, and bang, we have some kind of injury and pain, right? In this case, actual tissue damage. Now that differs from progressively loading my biceps in that range of motion and with that amount of force. So if for some reason, if we're taking this hypothetical example, if I gradually trained my biceps to get into that position and trained it with eccentrics, and then increased the velocity of the eccentric, and then also added in some like distraction interventions, right? So it has to be quick reactionary forces being put through my arm. If I develop that over the course of months and months, that would basically allow my load to slightly spike and my capacity to increase with it. And perhaps I wouldn't have gotten injured like I did in that instance. But the idea is that example is a time when load spiked up before capacity could catch up. So now that we understand what load and capacity are, now we can talk about how to manage injuries and how to manage pain. Ideally, what would happen is we would go into our training with a certain amount of load and a certain amount of capacity. And we would slowly push our load and allow capacity to catch up, right? We would slowly push our load in the gym and allow capacity to catch up, and kind of go up in little increments like this. Now, it never happens this perfectly, because there's going to be things that happen. We're going to get a bad night's sleep, or we're going to have a stressful week at work, and that's going to all affect capacity. And in that instance, maybe we are pushing load and then unexpected things happen, then perhaps we start to develop some pain. Our body's telling us, hold on. We're getting a little bit off kilter here, okay? That's what pain basically is telling us. It's communicating something to us that's very important. It's telling us, hey, this balancing act is getting a little bit too off, right? So then what we have to do in that instance, and where a lot of healthcare providers, I think, get it wrong, is so we're here right now and we have some pain. What most healthcare providers will do is take load and drop it way down to the bottom, right? So if we have a high-level bodybuilder, we're squatting, we're bench pressing, we're leg pressing, we're deadlifting, and we drop load all the way down because they develop some low back pain. Now we're doing some pelvic tilts on a table, we're doing some bridges, and we're doing some clamshells with a TheraBand, right? Now all of this capacity here that we've developed through our training, now it's going to start decreasing and start dropping to meet the demand of the load, right? And then we're both down here, so now we have minimal load and minimal capacity, and we feel great, right? Why would we have any pain? Because we're not pushing our capacity, but we've just lost that built up resiliency, so to speak. So now that the pain has been gone and it feels better, how do we know where to jump back into our training, right? Do we start with half the weight that we used prior? Do we start with half the volume that we used prior? Do we start with less intensity than we used prior, but same loads, same sets? Where do we start? So it's kind of this guessing game of how to get back into training, and during that guessing game, we are we run the risk of exceeding our capacity again and flaring up that pain, and then all of a sudden now we got a bad back or a bad knees that just keeps kind of recurring. What should have been done to manage that injury was, if we started here and the load just kind of exceeded our capacity, well, we make some slight modifications to our training. Maybe we decrease the load on the bar, right? Maybe we decrease, maybe we shave a set off of every exercise. Maybe we modify the range of motion, right? So we're lowering load just enough to meet our capacity. Now we make one small modification, ride that out for 2 weeks, and we don't have pain anymore, right? And now it's very simple how we get back up to where we want to be. We just take that step that we took down gradually up, right? So if we drop range of motion on all of our 4 sets and we're feeling good, maybe we increase the range of motion on 2 sets, but keep the partial range of motion on 2 sets. So now we're doing 2 full range, 2 partial. And we ride that out for a week, and now capacity slowly comes up, right? And then maybe we add another set of full range of motion, and capacity kind of rides up. If we have another stressful week or things happen, we don't get great sleep, then maybe capacity drops a bit and we start to feel that back flare up again or that knee flare up again. Simple. Then we just make that slight modification again. But we're playing this game and doing this dance rather than dropping our load all the way down and losing all of that built up capacity. So that, to me, is the key to longevity in bodybuilding and weightlifting. It's understanding that injuries aren't always due to some kind of tissue damage, right? It's not always due to the sexy headlines, right? Like running shoes or lifting technique or not enough mobility, a need for mobility work. Sometimes it's not those things. Sometimes it's just a matter of managing your workload. And if you can understand that, so first understand the concept and then have the confidence, and yes, I say confidence, to implement it into your life and into your training, that is the key, my friends, to longevity in the iron game. I hope this helped. Again, I think this is probably the most important question that I've ever been asked. And I'm glad that it is a common question that I get. So I hope that helps. And I wish you all a very long and prosperous journey in all of your fitness endeavors.